Whenever you have a system of equations, which in some areas is called simultaneous equations. They are equations that have two variables each, and you have to solve them together. This is what it means. If I have an equation that says x plus 1 equals 2, it is very easy for anyone who can think to figure out that this x is 1. But it becomes more complicated if I decide to mask this 1 and change it to y. Now I have x plus y equals 2. There is no guarantee that this is 1. You don't know it's 1. Because it could be 0 plus 2, it could be 4 plus negative 2, it could be 3 plus negative 1, it could be any combination of any two numbers. It could be 100 plus negative 98. So there's so many options when you have two. So for you to narrow down your options, you must have another equation that has x and y so that it will tell you exactly what you're dealing with. So let me say I decide to write x minus y equals 4. Now with this, I can figure out what my answer is because I have two sets of equations that will help me figure out what x is and what y is. So now, based on what I did, you all see that it cannot be 1 and 1, because if this was 1 and this was 1, my answer is supposed to be 0, but they've changed it. So this is what you call a system of equations, or what you call simultaneous equations. So you have to solve them together. Now in solving a system of equations, there are 3 or 4 methods, but I'm just going to say 3 for now. Okay, so the first way is for you to solve it using a method called elimination, which is what I'm going to focus on today. So you might use elimination, you can use substitution, and you can also graph them. Well, the fourth method stems from the process of graphing, which is from a table. It is not always effective, but sometimes it can provide you with the answer. Okay, but elimination, which I think is the fastest, substitution, in some cases might be faster, but generally elimination is faster. Elimination is faster than substitution. And then you go to graphing, and then you go to the table. In the process of doing the graphing, I'm going to explain this, but today I just want to focus on the process of elimination. And I will apply this principle to solving these 3 questions. But for now, let's go on to the process of elimination for solving a system of equations. So right now you've been presented with 2 equations. You cannot separately solve each of them. You have to solve them together. Now if you make an observation here, this is x plus y and it's equal to 2, and this is x minus y and it's equal to 4. So in the process of elimination, you will be asked to get rid of just the x or the y. Either of the variables, you choose which one you want to get rid of. And whichever you choose determines what you do. So this is how it works. If I'm going to get rid of x in both equations, I can see that this one has a coefficient of 1, positive 1, positive 1. So for you to get rid of 1, 1, you must be subtracting the 1 from the 1. So if I decide to get rid of the x's, it means I am subtracting this equation from this equation, because 1 minus 1 will give me a 0. I won't see it anymore. But if I choose to get rid of the y's, what I have on top here is a positive 1. What I have here is a negative 1. So the only way to get rid of positive 1 and negative 1 is to add them together. You're going to end up with a 0. So the first question you always ask yourself in solving this is, what am I planning to get rid of first? It is easier for me in this case to get rid of the one that contains a negative sign, because for some people, negative signs could be confusing. So just to avoid the entire confusion, you just say, I'm going to get rid of the y's. So that's what I'm going to do actually. I'm going to get rid of the y's. And remember, to get rid of the y's that have a positive 1 and the negative 1 is just to add them together. So my next process will be to add both equations together. Some people just choose to label this as equation 1, equation 2, and the next step will be add or adding equations 1, 2, 2. So you're adding the two equations. Now when we add this to this, what's going to happen? It's going to look like this. X plus y equals 2, x minus y equals 4. When you add, you put a plus sign somewhere in the corner so you know what you're doing. Now when you add this to this, you're going to get two of them, 2x. Remember, the purpose of adding the two equations is so we can get rid of this one. So that's gone. Don't write anything because it's gone. Because positive y minus y is going to give you 0. So don't write it. So 2 plus 4 gives you 6. Now you have 2x equals 6. Now we know how to get our answer. We know that x is going to be 3. If you divide both sides by 2. So quickly, you see it's just one step. I didn't have to write this if I was solving it. All I have to do is add the two equations, and I know now that x is 3. So I can go back. So I got the first answer. Now that I have my answer, let me make some room here. I have a smaller board this time, okay? So now that I have x equals 3, I can choose either of these equations to plug in my 3 so I can get the other one. At least I know right now that x plus y equals 2 if from x plus y equals 2, if I put in 3 for x, 3 plus y equals 2. What will y be? Well, I can take this 3 to the other side by subtracting 3 from both sides. Minus 3, minus 3. What I'm left with will be y equals negative 1. So you have this also as your second answer. So the answers to both equations will be x equals 3 and y will be negative 1. That's how that works. All equations will end up like that. Your first two steps or first step will give you the first answer, and then you substitute in one of the equations available, whichever looks easier for you, and you get your answer. So let's move on to these three, and I'm going to show you what to do in each case. You ready for it? Okay, let's go. So here we go. For this one, we're going to have the question is x plus y. X plus y equals 5. X minus y equals 3. Well, it looks exactly like the last example we did. Since we know what to do now, our choice is to eliminate this side. Well, you know, I want to switch it because it looks exactly like the other one. Why don't I choose to eliminate the x this time? So you know that it works whichever way you go. So to eliminate, because this is positive 1 and positive 1, for you to eliminate 1 and 1, you have to subtract them from each other. So I'm going to subtract this equation from this equation. So I'm going to subtract. Subtract. Okay? So if I subtract, this is what's going to happen. X minus x is going to give me a 0, so that's gone. Excuse me. And I'm going to have y minus negative y. That's going to be 2y. Because y minus negative y, these two consecutive signs will become positive. Remember, if the signs are the same, it's positive. If the signs are different, it's negative. That's how I teach my kids. So, here we go. So we're going to get 2y, and it's going to be, remember we're subtracting. So this is 0, this is now 2y. 5 minus 3 gives us 2. So it tells us that y, if you divide both sides by 2, y will be equal to 1. That's the first answer. And then we can substitute y equals 1 in either of the equations. Okay? So, for example, since, if I look at equation 2, since x minus y equals 3, I can put in y equals 1 here. X minus 1 equals 3. Then I can add 1 to both sides, and I get x equals 4. So my answers are x equals 4 and y equals 1. And you can put that in. You can see that x equals 4. 4 plus 1 gives you 5. Here, 4 minus 1 gives you 3. That's how you go about that. Okay, let's move on to the second question. Remember, you have to choose what you want to eliminate and make sure that the coefficients are the same in terms of magnitude. So let's go to question number 2 in this list of sample questions. So for number 2, we have 3x plus 2y equals 7, and then we have 4x plus 3y equals 10. So this question doesn't look like the first two we have solved, because this is not the same as this, and this is not the same as this. So the first thing to do is to make sure that they are the same. The ones you want to eliminate will be your focus, okay? Your focus is on what you want to eliminate. So for me, since everything is positive, I'll just try and eliminate something here. So what I do is, how would I make 3 and 4 to be the same? Well, I have to think of something called least common multiple. What would I multiply 4 by so that it will be the same as this? So I can multiply this by 4, it will give me 12. Then I multiply this by 3, and then I get 12. However, when you multiply anything in an equation, you have to multiply everything in that equation. So if I multiply this by 4, everything has to be multiplied by 4. If I multiply this by 3, everything has to be multiplied by 3. So what I have is, I'm going to multiply this by 4. And then I'm going to multiply. I have two brand new equations that still have the same values. So if I multiply this by 4, I'm going to get 12x plus 4 times 2y is 8y, and 4 times 7 is going to be 28. Okay, so these will be my fresh equations. So I'm going to label this equation 3, and this multiplied by 3 is going to be 12x, and 3 times 3 is going to be plus 9y, and this is going to be 3 times 10 is going to be 30. Okay, I call this equation 4. So I name these as 1 and 2, or you can actually just name these as 1 and 2. You don't have to, since we didn't name the other ones before. So at this point, your focus is the one that has the same coefficients. Okay, so 12 here is the same as the 12 here. We have made these two the same. So this is what you will eliminate. And because they are both positive, you subtract them so they can zero out. So this is your focus. Once you make the decision that you're going to be subtracting, you'll end up with something on this side that you can use. So what we'll do is we subtract. Okay, so if I subtract 12x from 12x, my answer is going to be basically 0. So that's gone. Remember, it's called elimination. So that's eliminated. Now I'm going to subtract. Oh, I forgot to say this. You can choose to subtract the top from the bottom or the bottom from the top. That's your choice. It doesn't matter which one. You're still going to get an answer. So let's say we subtract this from this. Okay, 12 from this, that's going to give you 0. Subtract this from this, you're going to get y. Subtract 28 from 30, you're going to get 2. We're done. That's your answer. It's fast, it's quick. So now that you have y equals 2, you can now choose one of these equations, one of the original equations, to substitute this. Why did I say choose one of the original equations? Sometimes you may have not written correctly when you were multiplying, so you may have made a mistake here. If you made a mistake here, when you're substituting again, I'm sure your mistake would have affected this, but in order to avoid multiple mistakes, it's always good to go back to the original question when you're doing your final substitution. So to substitute, I'm not going to choose one of these because, again, the numbers are bigger. Remember, they've been multiplied. So what you want to do is go back to the original equation that looks smaller. Well, because I'm using y, I'm going to take equation 1. So from 3x plus 2y equals 7, I'm going to substitute 2 for y. I have 3x plus 2 multiplied by 2. Remember, my y is 2, so I'm replacing it here, equals 7. And that gives me 3x plus 4 equals 7. If 3x plus 4 equals 7, then I have 3x equals 7 minus 4. So 3x equals 3, and x will be equal to 1. So I've solved this. X equals 1 and y equals 2. We can try it out by checking our answer. If x is 1, that's 3 times 1, which gives us 3, plus y is 2, that's 3 plus 2 times 2, 4. 3 plus 4 gives us 7. If we try it here, it's going to be 3 times 1, that's 4. 4 times 1 is 4 plus 6 is going to give us 10. So our answers are correct. Let's move on to the final sample question. So in the final sample question, the question says 5x minus y equals negative 2, and 2x plus 3y equals negative 23. Well, when I see questions like this, my mind quickly goes to the one that is easier to manipulate. If I try to make these two the same, it means I have to multiply this by 5 and then multiply this by 2. But if I try to make these two the same, I only need to multiply this by 3. And that's all I have to do. It will end up giving me 3 here and a 3 here. Okay, so I'll choose to just multiply this equation by 3. Okay, multiply this by 3. So if I multiply the top one by 3, it's going to end up looking like this. 15x minus 3y equals negative 6. Then I just write this. I don't need to do anything to this. So because I'm going to have 3y there. So this is 2x plus 3y equals negative 23. So because this is what I have to be the same, that's what I want to eliminate. And am I adding or subtracting? I will be adding, because the signs are different. And when you add two opposite signs, they zero out. So I'm going to be adding. Okay, so when I add the two equations, I have 15x plus 2x is going to be 17x. This is gone, it's eliminated. When I add negative 6 to negative 23, what do I get? I get negative 29. So what I'm going to get now is x equals negative 29 over 17. That's my x. So I chose this kind of question because sometimes you'll get a fraction as your answer. Don't think you're not correct. It's correct. Okay? So what I have is x equals negative 29 over 17. I recommend that you leave your answer like this. Okay? Don't change it into a mixed fraction yet, because you still need to substitute this in the original question. So x is equal to negative 29 over 17. Because you're substituting x and it's a fraction, I would advise that you pick the one that's small, that has smaller numbers. Avoid this. You might want to do this. Okay? So we're going to do the substitution, and that'll be the end of this video. So what we're going to have will be from 2x plus 3y equals negative 23, we're going to substitute x here, and that's going to be 29 over 17, that's negative. So 2 multiplied by negative 29 over 17 plus 3y will be equal to negative 23. So I'm going to open this up, and it's going to be negative 58 over 17 plus 3y over 1 equals negative 23 over 1. Remember the rule: every time you have an equation that involves a fraction, the best thing to do is to multiply each of the terms by the least common multiple. The least common multiple here is 17. So 17, we use 17 to multiply this, and multiply this. So let's do that. So this is going to be 17 multiplied by negative 58 over 17 plus 17 multiplied by 3y over 1 equals 17 multiplied by negative 23. So here, this is going to take this out. you have negative 58 plus, this is going to be 51y, and this is going to be 17 times negative 23. That's going to be 460 minus 69. That is 300 and oh, I need to do that quickly. Okay, that's gonna be that's 460 minus 69. 491. 391. That's it. 391. So that's what you have, and then we can move this to this side. Plus 58 plus 58. Oh, it's negative. So that's going to be 51y equals, by the time we solve this, this is going to be negative 333, I believe. Yes, negative 333, and then our y will be negative 333 divided by 51, and we'll end up with a 17 in the bottom, and here it will be negative 1, 1, 1. So that will be our answer. Y is going to be, so we have x equals this, and y equals negative 1, 1, 1 over 17. So this is a method called elimination, okay? And it leads you quickly to the first answer. You just need to substitute for the second one. Know what to eliminate, and you will be fine. Thank you for watching this video. Please like, share, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you know when the next video shows up. Thank you for watching once again. My name is Newton, or KYA. See you in the next video. God bless you.